I played every Mortal Kombat game on PS5. You know what the earliest fighting game I remember playing? X-Men Mutant Academy 2 on the original PlayStation. Big Marvel fan, as you know, and that game had such a colourful cast of X-Men characters. That was like the birth of my interest in fighting games. These big collections of fighters, all with different personalities, abilities, backgrounds, motivations, and movesets. This interest is what led me to discovering Mortal Kombat on the PlayStation 2, and ever since I've been a long-time fan. Now, I've made a ranking video of all the PlayStation entries in this hallmark fighting series. I've even ranked every single playable fighter from all the games. But for this video, I wanted to delve much deeper into the two latest Mortal Kombat games available now on the PlayStation 5. After the PS2 days of playing hundreds of hours of chess combat and being amazed at Mortal Kombat Mario Kart, I had a long break with the franchise. Interests were changing and Midway eventually went bankrupt, which led to many years without a new Mortal Kombat. When NetherRealm Studios was born and they returned with Mortal Kombat 2011, which rebooted the franchise, I was excited to get stuck back in. A more matured me found a new spark of enjoyment with the series. I was very fond of their direction with MK9, practically remaking the original 3 games for a whole new age, making use of modern graphics and technology. So when the PS4 released and we heard news of a next-gen follow-up, Mortal Kombat X, I couldn't have been more excited for a new Mortal Kombat than ever before. Our first game is Mortal Kombat X, which released in 2015, this being the second Mortal Kombat game developed by NetherRealm Studios. NetherRealm consisted of many staff that worked on the original Mortal Kombat games, but formed their own studio after the collapse of Midway Games. Ed Boon, one of the creators of Mortal Kombat, helmed the development of MKX in the director's chair. Ed Boon had been with the series since its inception, working as lead designer on the first 4 games before taking creative lead on the rest of the mainline installments. At E3 2014, Ed Boon and NetherRealm Studios first revealed the sequel to 2011's Mortal Kombat with a jaw-dropping CGI teaser of Scorpion battling Sub-Zero in a snowy forest. It got the style and theme of MKX perfectly, interactions with the environment, more brutal X-rays and finishes, and a darker tone for the franchise. The following April of 2015 saw Mortal Kombat X reach store shelves, and it would become the series' best-selling game to date, with over 10 million copies sold, and will go on to win the Best Fighting Game of 2015 at the Game Awards of that year. Mortal Kombat X had a roster of 24 characters at launch, a number which I feel some people were a little disappointed with, especially considering the past 3 MK games had 28, 63 and 26 sized rosters. Luckily, there were many fan favourites that made it into the roster, and with this new setting and time placement, we naturally got a wealthy number of fresh new faces, something I feel was the right direction. For returning characters, you've got the ones you come to expect, like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Raiden, Johnny Cage, Jax, Sonya, Kitana, Kano, and then there's fan favourites. You got like Quan Chi from MK4, Melina, Reptile, Ermac, Kenshi from Deadly Alliance, and once you beat the game's story mode, you'll unlock the main antagonist of the game, Shinnok. Now, if you pre-ordered the game, you would get the 25th character, Goro, although he was later added as paid DLC. As for the new faces to the series, for Special Forces recruits we have Johnny and Sonya's daughter Cassie Cage, Jax's daughter Jackie Briggs, Kenshi's son and Scorpion's new apprentice Takeda Takahashi, and finally a descendant of the great Kung Lao, Kung Jin. For new Outworld warriors, we have the new Khan of Outworld, Kotal Khan, after Shao Kahn's death in MK9, Insectoid, Devourer, Western-inspired assassin Aaron Black, and the muscle-bound symbiotic pair Ferrator. On just a glance, I think MKX had a roster of new characters that could rival Mortal Kombat 2's. There's such a distinctive and interesting set of characters here. You want to learn more about Takeda's past and fighting style. You want to know how Cassie has been influenced by two very differing parental personalities. You've got Clint Eastwood-inspired Aaron Black, you've got an insect hive queen, a pair of bonded monsters that play as one character, an Aztec-inspired god. If you compare this to some new character attempts of the past, this one has a lot more depth and room for exploration. MKX was so much about respecting the past as it was about embracing this new age. Now the main, grand addition that Mortal Kombat vs DC Universe added to the franchise was the story mode. This was like an animated movie injected with fighting game combat. It was later used for MK9 and NetherRealm's sister franchise Injustice. MKX's story mode has an even bigger budget with award-winning graphical detail, even if the colour palette is a little bleak and the game doesn't have all that many interesting stages. They even included some quick-time events to keep you engaged during some longer cutscene moments. Never did I feel them overused or distracting. Mortal Kombat X begins shortly after MK9. Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm has resulted in his death. Outworld is under Melina's rule, and those who died fighting against Shao Kahn were reborn as undead warriors called Revenants, led by sorcerer Quan Chi. All these events were leading up to the Elder God Shinnok's release. We start in the middle of a battle. The Netherrealm forces have invaded Earthrealm, and we get a kick-ass fight that sees Johnny Cage and Kenshi battle Scorpion and Revenant Sub-Zero. It's bloody, it's no holds barred, it's absolutely incredible choreography. This is what the budget went into. This is how you kickstart your new generation Mortal Kombat. Sub-Zero looks badass as a Revenant. I didn't even know it was Sub-Zero at first, then he pops two guys' heads together like mashed potato. Whilst they're dealing with the two most fantasized ninjas in all of Mortal Kombat, our two gods of thunder and wind respectively, Raiden and Fu Jin, are kicking demon butt at their temple in this gorgeously atmospheric rain. Who would have thought that Fu Jin was so awesome? It's great to see him return here. Speaking of returns, my man Quan Chi, he's back with his revenants, ready to awaken Shinnok. Now let's go off on a tangent. I love Quan Chi, okay? He's like the super evil guy that you enjoy seeing him do bad things. He's like Darth Maul before he got brought back in Clone Wars and was given depth. He just looks evil, he's incredibly evil, but he's likeable because he's so corny. He's got this evil laugh, this deep sinister voice, and the art team behind him know exactly what they want out of this character. Oh yeah, and 7-year-old me witnessed this guy whoop the backside of Raiden and Shang Tsung in one of the best video game intros ever, Mortal Kombat Deception. Even when Dragon King Onaga is walking towards him, Quan Chi stands his ground and says, "Yep, I can take him on." Quan Chi is so insanely good at being this evil badass that in the next scene, whilst Raiden and Fu Jin are here defending the Jinsei Vault with their life, a room that harnesses the life energy of Earthrealm, Quan Chi is just casually walking towards him with this grim smile like he's got time to spare. He's so confident that he's already won, and he's right, Shinnok has returned. I've never been a big fan of Shinnok, he hasn't really had the same impact as Shao Kahn, but he does get his moment here in the beginning. He smashes Raiden and Fu Jin into the Jinsei room. He gets knocked over by Johnny Cage, to which he returns with this line.
"Oh, sorry, ma'am. Didn't see you there."
"Miserable wretch! Insignificant speck of feculent scum! How dare you!"
And then he proceeds to give Sonya and Cage a masterful beatdown like Mr. Miyagi tackling a fly. But witnessing Sonya in danger unleashes Johnny's super green energy abilities, and he and Raiden send Shinnok packing back to the amulet prison he came from. Shinnok is defeated. Wait, Shinnok is defeated? It's over? Well, luckily, that was only chapter 1. After this, the story mode takes a big time gap of 20 years. In that time, there's been a new generation of combatants rise through the special forces, Shirai Ryu and Shaolin, Cassie, Jackie, Jin and Takeda. Meanwhile, Outworld has a whole new ruler, Kotal Khan, and Quan Chi has been rebuilding to try the same plan again, reawakening Shinnok, and this would be the character's downfall. Out the gate, we see that our new team of heroes don't work the best together at the beginning. They each have very different backgrounds, which has resulted in them having different perspectives on each new dilemma. They bicker about who has been through the toughest missions, or they take matters into their own hands to prevent civilian deaths, even if it means going against orders and breaking laws in another land. It's going to take the plans of Quan Chi to bring them together. The weakest addition I would say is Jackie Briggs. I think it takes too long into the campaign for her to be relevant. Having 2 of the 4 new characters both have the same military upbringing, but one of them having 2 prominent characters for her parents, whereas the other only has 1, which is out of action for the majority of the campaign, wasn't really the best strategy for Jackie. Takeda has issues with his father Kenshi, who orphaned him off to Scorpion when he was only young, and Kung Jin has had to live up to his ancestors' high values all of his early life, values he sees too difficult to live up to. These are very interesting backgrounds, but I feel the fighting game formula and needing another one-on-one fight every 5 minutes doesn't let us explore these characters much at all outside of like one scene for each. Jackie Aboom doesn't even get that. We don't get any scene of her with Jax, her own father. She is so left to the side. Back to this scene, Johnny Cage becomes the aged wise mentor, which is really jarring at first, but it's a good development for Johnny, who has been almost the complete opposite for the entire rest of this series. But you've got to kind of use your imagination to fill in that 20-year gap, which we don't see, of Johnny and Sonya marrying, raising a child and divorcing. MKX has cut out so many of these development details just to get us to the action. That's kind of one of the disappointing sides to such a large time jump. We miss so much. Now, speaking of missing things, Outworld has been shaken up a lot since Shao Kahn's death. When we next pick up in this game, we have a new Khan called Kotal, who was once a general in Shao Kahn's army. Kotal has usurped the throne from Mileena, and this has caused a rebellion and civil war between both sides. Mileena is aided by a few old faces such as Rain and Tanya and Baraka, whereas Kotal is guarded by new characters Devora, Ferrator and Erron Black. We don't get much history on these characters except they serve really whomever is on the Khan throne. Mileena uses Kano as a distraction to ambush his carriage, and the two sides engage in conflict. Mileena manages to escape with her life by using her powerful new weapon, Shinnok's amulet. How has she gained the amulet from under the protection of Raiden? This isn't ever explained within the game. The biggest gloss over this game has is how the hell she has Shinnok's amulet, which builds up all of the events to come in this game. This is like the most important thing to explain, but it's not. Her being in possession of the amulet only serves the purpose that when our heroes head to Outworld to team up with Kotal against the threatening Netherrealm forces, the offer will be declined due to a lack of trust in Earthrealm. This leads me on to Kotal Khan, who is my favourite new addition to the series. He has a really powerful stature to him, this prideful king with a magnificent design, loud headdress, blue body paint, tribal markings. He looks as chilling as he does welcoming. He's also extremely about protecting the laws of balance. Just about anything as small as stealing an apple is enough for a public execution. But he's not one to dismiss negotiation and see reason. He's built with honour, a stark contrast to Shao Kahn. When Kung Jin interrupts a public execution, it causes trouble in the Outworld streets. The 4 young Avengers get captured by Kotal Khan, but Kung Jin wrestling him to the floor makes him indebted to the Earthrealmers. Meanwhile, MKX just all of a sudden decides that Quan Chi did something so bad to the writers that he now needs to be humiliated, as Sonya gives him one of the worst beatdowns of his life. Like, he's pathetic in this scene. In fact, it's not even a scene, it's a full QuickTime event that you have to smack Quan Chi up. Whilst Kotal and Cassie's teams tighten their grip on Mileena, Devora, an interesting character that is made up of all these wasp-like bugs, defeats Mileena and gives her a really sloppy kiss to try and amend their relationship. Melina ends up speechless. I really enjoy Devora's smug and arrogant neck moves and her characteristics. You see this in her speeches, the way she talks, the way she moves. In her mind, she is indestructible, and she plays Kotal Kahn like a fool, as she's been working with Quan Chi this whole time. She steals the amulet for him, and Quan Chi sets off with his Ghost Riders to meet her. Kotal, however, thinks his loyal Devora has defected to Earthrealm, and before he's even made any investigations, he takes the Young Avengers as his prisoners. In the Netherrealm, the Special Forces have allied with Serena. Wow, that's a blast from the past. The Special Forces would be out of their depth though, if not for getting ye old Jax the Farmer out of retirement. Yeehaw! The Revenants get their butts kicked, Quan Chi is hiding behind the rock. Like, what the hell happened to the Quan Chi we saw at the beginning, huh? We see a nice interaction between Serena and Kitana, two good people who were/are in servitude to Quan Chi, but it's clear that all the good from these Revenant versions has been relinquished. They are beyond saving at this point. Anyway, Jax is so tired of living as a farmer, he gives his old master Quan Chi a brutal uppercut. But it's alright, as it was all part of Quan Chi's plan to get captured, just so Scorpion can come along and do this.
Get over here!
My man Quan Chi's dead, beheaded, kaput, deceased. Doesn't claim one good victory in this game. Now, Scorpion did deserve this win. This guy has seen the death of his family, his clan, himself, reborn a spectre, thought he killed the culprits who brought his family's demise, finds out he killed only the guy who was framed, fought his victim's brother for decades in a hate-filled rivalry. Now they're both older and wiser and ready to make peace, and now he finds out that the guy who rebirthed him into a spectre of fire and hate was the one who organised his clan and family's demise in the very first place. Quan Chi had it coming. This was Scorpion's penance, to kill one more time so he can set things right for himself. This comes beautifully after a scene with Sub-Zero, where the pair, after a lengthy history of being severe rivals, just sit and drink tea together. It's this maturity which Mortal Kombat X revels in. It's what makes this such a compelling entry in this 30-year-old franchise. But Quan Chi is still dead. Luckily it wasn't for nothing, as Devora arrived just in time with the amulet, and in an edge-of-your-seat, butt-cheeks clinging on for dear life moment, Quan Chi completes his spell just before Scorpion's blade gives his neck a nasty love bite. As his head drops to the floor, he gives his final smirk. Everything he had set out to do had been achieved. Shinnok is back, and he wipes the floor with everyone here. As the Young Avengers arrive, Shinnok and his Revenants are gone to the Jinsei, and they get ready for the final battle. Bo Rai Cho, who weirdly has been completely absent so far, shows his face, likely so people didn't think NetherRealm Studios have abandoned the 3D era, and Raiden, who also just went missing for the majority of this game, both tried to hold off Shinnok and his forces, but to no avail. There's no explanation why Fujin isn't here also when he was just helping Raiden at the beginning of the game. Has he gone on vacation? Shinnok finally achieves what has took him millennia to accomplish. He absorbs the Earthrealm life force and transforms into lava monster. Corrupt Shinnok. But not to worry, as the Young Avengers arrive, our next generation of combatants. The rest fight the Revenants whilst Cassie Cage goes to help Johnny, who is trapped in the Jinsei wrapped in Devora's webs. But Cassie is ambushed by corrupt Shinnok. Luckily, much like her father when he battles Shinnok at the beginning, yes, that major foreshadowing, this is where Cassie's super green energy powers reveal themselves, and she whoops the Elder God's ass. Just like that? Damn, Shinnok, you really do suck. Raiden had no choice but to take back Shinnok's corruption of the Jinsei. This reverses Shinnok's transformation and turns Raiden into a bit of a tyrant. But the Earth is saved, the Revenants retreat back to the Netherrealm, and in an after-credits scene, Shinnok is beheaded and sent to Revenant Liu Kang and Kitana as a warning from Dark Raiden never to threaten Earthrealm. I did think it all ends pretty fast. Like, there's no real passage of time or conclusion at the end. Like, we don't see Johnny and Sonya's relationship flourish again, or what becomes of Scorpion and Sub-Zero's new friendship. Does Takeda make back up with his father? Where's the scene in which Kung Jin returns to the Shaolin a changed person? What will Kotal do now that Devora has betrayed him? Where has Devora gone to? Unfortunately, none of these questions are resolved. The story mode just literally ends after the fight with Shinnok. I guess we have to wait until the next game, if they don't reboot it all again, right? My verdict on the story mode is that it is enjoyable. Its lack of loading screens keeps up that sweet pace from cutscenes to gameplay. It's got some great fight sequences and high budget. What is repetitive is the way the story is presented, by character chapters. Each chapter you play as one character for 4 matches, and then it's on to the next. With only 12 chapters, half of the game's base roster you won't play as once in the story, leaving those characters feeling less developed than the others. It's also a little boring playing the same routine. You start counting when you'll change character like 3 matches in. Like, oh, 2 matches from now I'll be on to the next chapter. Whereas if it was more organic, the character you played as was always changing, always different, it would have extinguished this slight tiresome nature. I also can't believe that out of all the chapters, and if we're presenting Scorpion being a hero in this game, only 2 of the chapters do we play as villains. Chapter 2, Kotal Kahn, and Chapter 6, Devora. This is why the stakes feel so small in this game, and why Quan Chi and especially Shinnok are not intimidating villains. They never win or get far in their plans because we never get to play as them. It would have been more thrilling to have at least 1 or 2 matches as Quan Chi or Shinnok, at least showing us some of their threatening power. It's a shock also that even Ferrator nor Erron Black, new characters, don't have chapters of their own as well. It would have been better just to learn a little bit more about these characters, their backgrounds, their lifestyles, their relationships. Instead, they're just Kotal Kahn lackeys. Now, Mortal Kombat X was heavily marketed around its new online component and factions. When you start the game, you'll choose one of 5 factions, and team stats and challenges will play out in the background, with you gaining rewards if your faction won that season. Now, I don't think it's even up still today, so all it really does now is just change the main menu background, which still is a pretty nice detail. MKX is also bursting with content outside of the one-on-one combat, something you actually don't see a lot of in the fighting game genre. Most of the contemporaries are pretty light on modes, you got your arcade, your versus, pretty typical stuff. But not Mortal Kombat, not MKX. Now, to be fair, there's not a massive wealth of content as some of the 3D era ones, where you had like puzzle combat and chess combat, but here you've still got a wealth of diverse and creative unlockable costumes, really awesome concept art with developer notes, you got character profiles, you got a character viewer, a whole small first-person adventure side game called The Crypt, in which you can unlock all this stuff using coins earned in-game. The Crypt has this thick horror atmosphere taking place within a few different locations like the woods, spider caves, Shaolin Temple, and the Netherrealm. It's even got these like jump scares as well. It's a nice bonus that adds a few more hours of game time and a different pace to the fighting gameplay. Outside of this, you've got multiple modes in which to fight, online modes like King of the Hill, single player ones like Challenge Towers, Test Your Might is back, which is really nice extra, and traditional Character Towers arcade mode, you get the drill. You've also got CPU or local multiplayer single battles. I didn't play a lot of Challenge Towers as I found the added stipulations to be pretty gimmicky and only played it to get coins after finishing the story mode. Unluckily, Netherrealm solves this with a premium fee that unlocks all of the Crypt content instantly. Of course, they could just increase how many coins you earn from single matches and the story mode, but that would disincentivize paying the premium fee, wouldn't it? This, along with easy fatality tokens, are our first signs of Warner Brothers' greedy fingers digging deep into the Mortal Kombat franchise. Luckily, I managed to dodge both of these as I looked up online where specific Crypt content was and just got the costumes and concept art that I wanted. And I'm not lazy enough to purchase easy fatality tokens when you can just pause the game and look at the input code. Each playable character in MKX has 3 variations. This basically means that the large moveset they could have had is split into 3, likely to elude the thoughts of MKX having a small initial roster. The 3 variations will differ only slightly by changing a handful of special moves that the specific character will have to use in battle. My problem was that it kind of makes your character a little shallow feeling than they should. When playing Scorpion, I'd like to use his katana and his fire-based attacks, not have to choose between them. The variations also alter part of the character's looks for some reason, giving Shinnok bony skeleton hands or changing Kung Lao's iconic hat to some odd unappealing shape. My experience with variations thus came down to me just wanting the best look for the character I was choosing. I don't like Quan Chi looking like a lit up neon sign, so I never used that variation. The only character I actually agree with them having variations is the DLC character Triborg, as his variations actually made sense. Mortal Kombat X also added the now iconic character dialogues during the intros to the battles. Every single matchup you could think of has multiple unique character interactions that shed light on why they'd be fighting or include references to previous games' events. It's fun banter that is almost as exciting as to play the fight itself. MKX also came with a ton of great post-release DLC content, and no, I'm not talking about unlocking all the crypt content or easy fatality tokens. There was new skins. Some of my favourites included were the Ronin outfit for Kenshi, which fit his character perfectly, Ermac's mummy attire, which harkened back to the days of the PS2 era, Devora's hardcore Mad Max inspired costume with this awesome face paint. There was plenty of classic skins, and to see characters in their old attires again is a treat in MKX's updated graphics. Then there's the animated costumes, Gold Scorpion, Blue Steel Sub-Zero and Crimson Ermac, which I love when games have animated character models in a realistic background and setting. I really enjoy seeing the contrast between the characters and the realistic world around them, and these costumes are really cool. But in addition to these bizarre and incredible new costumes, there were also new DLC characters to add to that rather small initial roster. Now in MK9 you'll remember that horror icon Freddy Krueger showed up as DLC for that game, and this led fans to believe that for the next game we would see more horror themed characters, and we certainly did. MKX kicked off its Kombat Pack 1 with Jason Voorhees, the clear contender to Freddy Krueger, but unfortunately the latter was absent from MKX, so no Freddy vs Jason fan battles. After Jason we got returning 3D generation character Tanya, the villainous Edenian, whose moveset and model was already used in the story mode, so it was questionable why she was paid DLC and not just on the initial roster to begin with. The next guest fighter was Predator inspired directly from the 1987 edition of the Predator franchise, a big favourite among the fanbase. And the final character in Kombat Pack 1 was Tremor, a surprising addition considering the character's history in the franchise. Originally Tremor was only ever a boss in the negatively received Mortal Kombat Special Forces. He was added as a hidden character in the Vita version of MK9, and now this marks his first officially playable appearance nearly 2 decades after his debut. With the next Mortal Kombat looking pretty far away and fans eager for more entries on Mortal Kombat X's roster, NetherRealm Studios announced Kombat Pack 2. They kicked off with new Mortal Kombat character Triborg. This is a full robot that was taken by the Special Forces and had Sector, Cyrax, Smoke and Sub-Zero programming built within its databanks, allowing it to perform all of their fighting styles and moves. It escaped the lab where it was programmed, killing all involved, and now wants to take over humanity. Triborg was NetherRealm's best chance at getting the former 3 ninjas into MKX, and I'd say they definitely played it off pretty well. The first guest fighter of Kombat Pack 2 was Leatherface, another slasher villain much like Jason, hailing from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. The final returning character will be Bo Rai Cho, the master of Liu Kang and Kung Lao, who first appeared in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Again, it was nice to see MKX embrace more of its 3D era characters. And the last DLC guest character was Alien, a xenomorph from the franchise of the same name, this one birthed from a Tarkatan host, meaning not only is it a guest fighter, but features properties from Baraka. MKX was a really solid entry. While its darker atmosphere led to a bleaker, washed out world and character designs, it does get a lot right. In story mode it takes baby steps into the right direction, and its visceral fast combat was improved from MK9. Once all of its DLC has released, the roster featured a wholesome cast of returning 3D era characters, fan favourites and newcomers. The story mode still had hurdles, the attempt at microtransactions does hurt the crypt a little, and it's pitiful that easy fatality tokens was ever written down and never mind actually made its way into the game. Nevertheless, MKX, solid fighting game. Back in the day I was anticipating where they could go next.